Dear Dhamma brothers, Dhamma friends, topic is the relevance of mindfulness to you and in the present day. So basically, I think I have to start with the term mindfulness. The English term mindfulness is a translation of the Pali term known as sati. Those who are familiar with the scriptures, they would have come across the sati, and I have my own doubt whether the term sati is well translated by this term mindfulness. Some scholars translate it as awareness, and some of the other, we are somewhat lucky, because now that as the mindfulness has become a interesting topic in the Western countries, and they are finding good translation and other equivalents, and they may help us to understand the term. And not only that is difficult in English, even in Sinhala, that is we are from Sri Lanka, and even in Sinhala and in the Pali, this term is not much in use due to some unfortunate events, maybe in the recent past. So therefore, in the normal vocabulary, you don't find the sati or siya in Sinhala, but in English it is called mindfulness. But one good thing is the Buddha, the omniscient one, he has given yet another Pali term known as appamada. That means in the Pali language, appamada and sati are being treated as synonyms. So appamada is fairly in good use. It is being translated as diligence. So you, young people, have to be very diligent and very keen in the studies. And each one of you knows, whenever you are not diligent enough or vigilant enough to your work, we consider it as the negligence. Negligence is very common. So therefore we can start understanding the technical meaning of mindfulness through this equivalent, that is negligent. So negligent means that you are not doing things that you should do on time. So that, of course, I need not do any elaboration, that very well you know. But I would like to add yet another part for this definition of the diligence, that is not doing, not diligent to do what you should do. But the religious part, or in the spiritual part, it says not diligent to not to do what you should not do. That is the part we have to give more emphasis, but unlucky enough that meaning has not come much to our day-to-day life. So therefore, if someone is trying to be diligent, not only one is responsible to do what you should do, equally the same person must be considerate on not to do what you should not do. So that is the spiritual part, or our backbone in our career. So whenever someone is understanding the balanced meaning of this diligence, what you should do and what you should not do, I think it's a very good start. And on that respect, the Buddha himself says that if you can start earlier, at the very young age, he says, if you can cut the lifespan into 3, the first the part, and he says when for the Sri Lankan standard, you have black hair, young age, and the early part of your life, you can understand at least on theoretical basis what does it mean by the diligence. It will be a very good balanced life, and you will not only try to be diligent what you should do, but equally you become responsible not to do what you should not do. So that diligence, not like in the day-to-day activities as the topic suggests for today, but normally in the, we'll say, meditative life or mendicants, they take it seriously in 3 different ways to introduce the diligence into one's life. That is your moral responsibility, that is to take care about your physical misdeeds and verbal misdeeds, and that is we call moral responsibility. They are, you try your best, or as much as possible, or try to be diligent, not to perform misconducts regarding the physical and verbal deeds. And once that is done, then the Buddha suggests yet another kind of diligence, that is to get certain amount of concentration. That is called concentration training. And there are also, you have to do away with some things, and then only the situation will be more conducive for your concentration to happen. That concentration either to your studies or keep in the memory, or to earn religious part of the concentration, whatever it may be. You have to, you must understand the subject of concentration, and there are some parts that you should do, equally there are some parts you should not do. And then it is basically going to the, what you call meditation, and I am not going to touch that in detail, but I will try to share with you all on how much that kind of a concentration helps one to have a good education and a good relationship with the fellow beings. And so far, the diligence towards the moral deeds and the diligence towards concentration were already common and in practice even the early Buddhist time, even before the Buddha time, before the time of the Buddha. And the most significant contribution of the Buddha was to introducing or giving furthering of this moral and concentration kind of diligence up to the wisdom kind of training. And presently, if you consider the world questions like frustration or consumerization and destruction of the ozone layer and all the heating, global heating, all the kind of thing, they found that without that kind of a diligence towards your wisdom, very difficult to run the present game, and we are really exploiting. And therefore, not only in the East Asian countries, but even the Western countries, specifically America and Germany, Australia also, somewhat leading, they try to apply this diligence to the wisdom on individual basis as well as society at large. So, with that idea, the diligence towards to do what you should do and not to do what you should not do, each one has own responsibility to understand do's and don'ts. When you are traveling or when you are visiting to another place, usually what you do is you understand the do's and don'ts of that particular place, then only you can entertain your trip and not to violate their own existing culture. So likewise, when you are going to the domain of diligence, you are specializing the same. And with that light of diligence, if I am to come back to the mindfulness is almost equivalent or synonym to the diligence, but that it appears more technical, and those who are educated and well-versed in the communication, they can understand the meaning of mindfulness more in deep and detail. And later commentators on the, specifically the Buddhist scriptures, they say whenever your mind is mindful, your attitude toward whatever may be the object, never be superficial, never be floating upon the top, but it is penetrating into the very subject, very object or very phenomena that you have already adverted into or that you have focused. So therefore, present-day education is specifically when you are advancing, you are specializing your own subject, and then you go deeper and deeper and deeper. And for that, mindfulness is very helpful. And they used to say, Chirakatampi, Chirabhasitampi, Sarita, Anusarita in Pali, says if you are developing mindfulness, you can remember what you have told and you have done in a long past, and therefore your memory capacity is increasing. So therefore in, I think in Germany, they are trying their best to teach mindfulness or introducing mindfulness to the students so that they can perform, specifically keeping the memory capacity much. And in America, basically mindfulness is being used to reduce the stress. They use the mindfulness-based stress reduction program. And I heard one study they have done in the schools at the standard of grade 4. That means at the age of 10, 11. And they have taught the young children, whenever they are no class teacher, they are quarreling each other and bullying each other and all the kind of thing. So therefore the class teacher used to say to the young children, whenever someone is going to tease you or disturb you, if you get disturbed, you are the loser, the other person going to win. So therefore you must always try to keep your mind state, not to get disturbed even the other person is provoking and teasing you. So they used to remind it again and again in a regular basis. And after 1 year or 2 years' time, they have done a social survey to understand who is the one got this technique learned. And they found 1 or 2 girls, they are very skillful. Even the other person is going to disturb you or tease you or bullying, that particular character, the young girls, they are not get disturbed and therefore they are the winners. So after selecting that particular skillful girls, they have asked, if you very good that you have got the message and you got the benefits, because now you are quite indifferent or you are equanimous, even the other person is going to do some malice or bad things, so your mind state of mind is calm and quiet. But that those who have conducted the research has asked that girls, would you mind to share that with your peer group? And to, if it is so, what is the best way that you think to communicate this idea? That those skillful girls, they have point blank, they are told it is impossible. Those who catch the idea, they will catch, others no. It is very difficult to give in a gradual basis or in a educational program. So then the researchers, they have told, but you see that we tried with you people 1 or 2 years, some or the other you catch it. So therefore, why don't you think about the method, the way you got it and how can you communicate with the peer group. Then the second time also they have refused, and third time they have asked out of compassion, out of consideration, please do something. And then that particular girl has told, whenever someone is doing bad thing or teaching or bullying, whatever may be, I used to look at my mind. When I look at my mind, I feel it is like a still forest pool. It's a completely calm water body. And I see the persons, then I look at the person who is disturbing me, I see his water bodies, ripples and waves, and it is unsteady. So now my effort is to not to get that wave transferred into my pool, forest pool. So whenever I look at the problem in this way, I'm fairly successful to maintain my stream of consciousness. So now they are going to introduce more and more on that kind of technique so that the younger generation will not get more stressful or tension in the mind. Even the society, even the elders and even the advertisement and others are provoking and giving ideas and all the kind of thing. How can you maintain the stream of consciousness in a calm and steady way, not to get that drastic waves. So these are the simple benefits that you can understand. And for that, you must have a certain amount of preparedness for that kind of thing. And the mindfulness is the technique they are teaching. And whenever you are focusing your attention to one particular object, of course, if it is a neutral one, you are much safer. And then once you penetrated and pondered, plunged into that object, you get a kind of security. You become cut off from the other things and you can go deep and deep into that. So therefore, at the beginning, it is not much skillful. So you have to mindfulness in the formal practice. Just like before I come, you sit and close your eyes and observe. You get one or the other object. If that object is experienceable, if it is related to your very moment, it's quite appreciable, and you try to keep the mind repetitively applying into that object. It's a neutral object. Due to your constant effort, whenever the mind go into that object, you get kind of a security. The mind is within the penetration, otherwise it is superficially floating here and there, no control and very difficult to discipline the mind. So therefore one character or the main character of the mindfulness is a non-floating and penetrating character. And the second thing, what function, once the mindfulness is going to start, once the momentum comes, you can exactly say, where's my mind for the present moment, for the given moment. That means your communication with others, you can say, at that moment, I was with that, not that. Likewise, very clearly you can understand. So, under such circumstances, whenever you know your stream of consciousness, even for a small period of time, that it was under the mindfulness, it was under that object. And your memory upon that situation is very clear, as well as the communication is very clear. Therefore, even someone going to come and going to accuse you, you have did that and that, you can recollect yourself and see, have I done that kind of a thing at that moment purposefully, or the other person misread it? If there is no diligence, if there is no mindfulness, very difficult for you to go back and consult that very moment whether you did such a thing or such a thing happened through your other behavior. If there is a doubt there, you are always entertaining doubts, and ultimately you can't make clear your own the evidence. So example is that I think Australia and Sri Lanka both, we entertain the cricket. And you know that few years before, for the cricket, only there was two umpires, the chief umpire and the leg umpire. And they used to observe when every event happens, and if someone is appealed, it is the final judgment of the umpire. But what happened was, whatever the judgment the umpire given are being challenged. Ultimately, there are a lot of cases in the cricket council, because very tiny, minute things are happening which has not been constitutionalized, and therefore then and there they have to refine it. Ultimately, one of the Sri Lankan, they came out and suggested the third umpire. Third umpire was a television camera. From all the sections, the game is being observed. If the umpire's judgment is being challenged, they can get the clip and see action replay and slow motion and see what happened. You see the difference, whenever the umpire is coming out and giving the decision, the human error is there. But whenever the television camera is being employed, no human error. Both the parties can see and then they have to agree. Therefore, a lot of cases sorted out very quickly. Likewise, if your television camera is not working on you while you are working, then your decisions are very hazy and unclear. So your television camera is the mindfulness. So therefore, whenever you are performing something, not basically like in sitting and close your eyes and meditating, but in your day-to-day activities, once the mindfulness is being employed, while you are doing, you are the doer, and there is another observer from the external point of view. And therefore, then and there, reconciliation is happening, and your responsibility and your clarity in the doubtless clarity is very clear. So therefore, it is helping you to keep in the relationship with other people. More and more you become mindful. You have another evidence, not the third person, not what your mind says, but the mindfulness. So that was very, as far as my personal experience is concerned, I found that is very, very good in order to keep the relationship with other people, because we are, whatever maybe, we are social beings. We have to be with other people. What you do is not the other person is reading. Other person look at from their point of view. Ultimately, something you have done unintentionally, you have hurt the other person, and he may be coming out and accusing. And if you do not have this mindfulness, you are succumb to the situation. So, if you have the mindfulness, of course, the other person will not accept it. But anyway, your stream of consciousness is clear. So, therefore, the mindfulness, whenever the mindfulness is working, it knows I was with that object. And therefore, at a given moment, mind cannot work with the two objects. So therefore, as far as the clarity is there, while you are performing this object, the mindfulness and the observing of that object, there may other activities are going on within your body, and if I am to put it in a clear way, some actions what you do is intentional. Some other actions are taking place unintentional. For these unintentional actions, sometimes hurting other people in the society. So ultimately, you are bound to get unfounded accusation, unless otherwise your mind is clear with the mindfulness. Very difficult to make up your mind clear and go for the next moment. It accumulated so much of unsorted out cases in the mind. So therefore, your mindfulness give a kind of a reflection, because given moment, if the mindfulness is clear, you know where it is focusing. There, if you allow me to explain, as human being, one being, maintaining 6 faculties. The I is a completely different faculty. It's always concerned only the visual objects, and it always bossy and always try to keep the eye open. And as far as eye is fully working with the observing, as far as eye is observing, it won't give any chance for ear to listen anything. So what I am going to explain you is, as far as you are observing, you are no more a listener. You can't smell, you can't taste, you can't touch. Nothing the eyes become predominant and it's called dominancy. You see, I have done the basic degrees in agriculture, and when you get a dicotyledon plant, when the apical meristem is growing, it suppresses all the other meristems down there. It exudes some kind of a chemical. So therefore, apical meristem is completely apical dominancy. It won't allow any other meristems to grow. Whenever you nip it off the apical meristem, so all the other buds are coming. So out of this example, what I'm going to say is, I is always dominating. So therefore, whenever you are observing sound happening on your eardrum, it won't make any valid appeal. All the other like that. When you are listening, definitely that indicates the visual objects are not being analyzed. All the other five faculties are not working. So one donkey at a time. But while you are observing, unintentionally your body, hands and other actions may take place, and the other person, when we are living in the society, they either say good or bad about our unintentional thing, unless otherwise you're mindful, very difficult for you to sort it out, whether such a thing you did or it happened to you. It's a very complicated, very subtle thing, but whenever the mindfulness comes into work, slowly, you understand what you do and what is happening to you. So this is very, very clear, and ultimately you will understand how much it is helping you to communicate with other person. With this clarity, in the language it is called passive voice and active voice. When you are active voice, that means you know this is what is the doer is doing while it is happening. There are a lot of passive things happening. Unless otherwise you are sharp enough in understanding the mindfulness, these things get mixed up and ultimately disturb your internal communication and the external communication. So therefore, even though it is difficult to get a good start on the mindfulness, that if you allocate enough time and invest and get the mindfulness corrected, it is a long journey. Sorting out things in a long journey, not only within you, but even communicating with the other side. So the main point of the mindfulness is, whenever mindfulness in action, you can clearly say, my mind is directed to that. Either I am seeing, or I am listening, or I am smelling, or touching, or tasting. So that is, I think, main reason when you are learning mindfulness, the Buddha, the founder, he says, you better go to some place where you can control that. You go to a hole like this and close your eyes so that there won't be any transaction in the eye. And you go to a silent place and you can keep the listening action also not in action, and don't entertain smelling and tasting, and keep the body and focus the attention to the body and try to be with yourself. So, under such circumstances, the mindfulness can be defined as here, now, I am. So, whenever now I am going to give a very formal kind of development of mindfulness that I hope will helpful for you to understand the practical implication. And whenever you sit and understand here, now, I am sitting, very clearly mind is internal, mind is introvert. Then only you will understand how difficult for someone to keep the mind internal, because it is always habitually running out through the ear, eye, nose, tongue and other thinking. Whenever it comes to here, now I am sitting, you can find it is like a wild beast taken out of the wilderness and keeping in the center of the town, something like. So that is why very difficult at the beginning to keep the track with. But it's worthwhile. Worth you take this experiment and see to keep the mind, keep the attention, keep the diligence, keep the awareness with the present moment. And that is called power of now. And that is called power of mindfulness. And when that happens, for the first time, with full awareness, with diligence, you are living. All the other time you are dreaming. Whether you like it or not, it's a daydreaming. Your mind is outward. And thing is not under control. So therefore, even though it is very formal and difficult and not interested and kind of thing, even then if you learn it, to keep here and now, and you can say, this is the only moment where you develop loving kindness to yourself. Otherwise you are completely astray. You don't know, you are looking, seeing, smelling, listening, so much of things. And simply, once you develop the mindfulness, you can ask yourself, the mind is running from faculty to faculty with whose agenda? Is it my agenda? Or it is someone is controlling me? I am not going to tell you that it is your agenda, you can prove yourself. Because whenever you wish to keep the mind in here and now with the body, how difficult? If it is your agenda, you must have some capacity to command the mind and demand the mind, be here and now. It is it's running out. And running out with whose agenda? I am not going to, it is a separate, omnipresent, omnipotent God, someone controlling you, not another person, but I am telling just to explore into that. When you keep the senses open, how quickly, how swiftly running from one faculty to the other. Can you keep the book about accounts, how often you become a seer and quickly you become a listener and smelling, tasting, touching, thinking. The magic is untrained mind definitely think you can do everything at a given time. That is the only thing you have to challenge and see. Whenever you keep the mind inside your body, for example here, now I am, you see whenever the seeing happens, you can't keep that thought moment. It is, we call wandering off and dragging off outside. And when you are listening, you can't keep it here. And there you can understand there are 6 tracks are happening. If one track is happening, all the others are not working. So therefore, the Buddha, in introducing mindfulness, he says best thing is to go to a forest or sit under a tree and go to a place like this. It is not much with that sensuous pleasures are there. And then you try with your whole determination and preparedness and theoretical knowledge and rationalization, how long you can keep the track with the sitting posture or your body and keep it like that. And when you are observing, and one should train to keep it mindfully in your posture, you will understand inside there, it is like a powerhouse. So much of things are happening. It's what we call living, or we can say being. So whenever the mind comes to the just being, that means you forget about the outside and you come there, through familiarization, through seasoning, you can understand a lot of streams are running, and in order to sharpen your mindfulness, it says focus the attention to the what is the most prominent within. And that is how the formal meditation, formal mindfulness is the practicing, and that is not the what I am going to take too much of time. Therefore, I am just introducing, whenever you understand the adverting power, the directing power, and focusing power, you can't do both. For example, you can't understand the internal and external. Either one you have to sacrifice. And therefore, whenever you have to practice mindfulness inside, soon you will understand External has to be sacrificed. One scientist, he explained it, whenever you wish to see something under the microscope, early microscope has only one eyepiece, and therefore you have to close one eye and focus the attention to the one eyepiece. That means you have to forget about the world. Otherwise you can't see what is in the slide. Exactly the same. And recently with the quantum physics, they have developed so much. This is that the particle can be either energy or it can be a particle. They collapse into particle. Once a particle happens, there's only two characters: the velocity and the mass or the weight. They can observe this particle under the electron microscope. If as far as you are observing the velocity, you never can see the weight of that very particle. If the machine is focused to the velocity, only you can see the velocity, never you can see the particle weight or mass, because it's so quick. Whenever you focus to see its mass, the weight, never you can see the velocity. Such a clarity is there in the mind, it is working. But unmindful people, negligent people, they think at a time we can see, hear, smell, touch, everything. And that is why we go to carnivals. And when you go to the carnival, so much of lights and so much of music and so much of smell and taste and all the kind of thing. But the mindful person will see the carnival is really inside. When you close eye and see inside, so much of thing happens, but still the same phenomenon. At a given time, only one thing happens. So, moment you try to understand, in this very moment, where my mind is, it may be very tiny thing, but it's a very good breakthrough. And one day you understand moment to moment continuity of few thought moments, maybe few seconds, you will understand the human mind and the human body is such a marvelous thing, but always extrovert. It is looking outside, never focus inside. Once you look at it, of course, young people think it is very religious, very spiritual and kind of thing. But I am telling you, it's very exciting. But never the focus. But the thing is, mind do all the kind of tricks, not to focus into one thing. And therefore, you have to repetitively apply. And then you can understand, mind has a character. It can see one thing at a time. Selecting one and observing one means forgetting about the whole the world, or rest of the world. So, but anyway, better be aware of that phenomena and understand and keep the bookkeeping. This is what I observed, even for a split second, even for 1 minute, even for 1 second. And when you are developing, that very knowledge that you are going to, for the moment you are listening and understanding, and that whenever you are to experience, that not only you are understanding and exploring into your mind, you are exploring into the human mind. This is how happening in everywhere. This is how happening in every person, every place. So therefore, it is a kind of a universal door opening and to the mind science. And therefore, the most other part that the sentence must come here is, you can't do it with other minds. You can't be mindful with the other person. You have to be mindful here, now, with myself. And once understood, you can understand it's some basic principles. And the third aspect you will understand is, whenever the mindfulness sets in and you develop the momentum, of course it takes a long time, and you feel whenever the mind is absorbed and penetrated into one particular thing, your physical and verbal behavior is rather tamed. It is not bizarre, it is not going uncontrolled, and therefore the focusing into one kind of thing, kind of a restrainment is there. So not on the physical, even the mind is restraining, and therefore more you go into the penetration into one, ultimately you understand through that particular phenomena, the whole universe, whole galaxy, whole this thing, and that is now in science they call that holographic understanding. Hologram is something, you have a picture, each and every tiny particle of that picture representing the whole. And recently there were some emails, they explain it. When you are going deep into one particle, one atom, the configuration of the atom is just like the solar system. The sun and the rotating planets and the nucleus and the other electrons, exactly the same thing, whatever may be that. And that is how the whole galaxy and the whole system happens. So going out, of course, that is what the science did, the physics did, and no limit. But whenever you go in, you don't believe, whatever you go penetrating into that, the same thing happens. Understanding one tiny thing is understand the whole universe. So when that circuit becomes complete, you take a project that you can end up with. But the physics is going outside, never end up with, and therefore it is endless journey. With the help of the physics, we can introvert it, and when you go there, you understand your journey is having a destiny, understanding very tiny thing is explaining everything, and therefore kind of a security you feel, because that accumulation of the experience, the accumulation of your the memory is nicely organized. So therefore, today you may be mindful in the 1 split second or 1 second or 1 minute or maybe, and tomorrow you may do another time. Ultimately, when they going to develop the experience, the count the experience, everything very nicely compiling, and ultimately the momentum going to happen. So therefore, your day-to-day timetable won't get much of space for you to allocate only for the mindfulness, because you generally claim you are busy. But if you wish to understand who am I, if you wish to understand what does it mean by living, if you wish to understand what does it mean by the loving kindness to oneself, I invite you to explore into this and take little time daily and incorporate that into the mindfulness. Ultimately, it will gather the momentum slowly. So therefore, first and foremost, the most formal thing is sitting, and then you can observe the present moment. Here, now I am sitting. Some people, when we are sitting and calm down, when the attention goes to the internal introvert, sometimes they feel the breathing. It's a very good object. The second stage, first you go to the sitting posture, and being at very calm and quite collected, you can be there. You can understand natural breathing, but don't go for forced breathing in order to make it prominent. Just be with the breathing. And it is easy way, but it needs this kind of a meditation hall and all the facilities. In my personal life, first, and I am happy to say that the mindfulness introduced to me by an Australian monk. I am a born Buddhist, but I never practice. I occasionally happen to meet Venerable Dhammika. He is from Melbourne, and he was in the Peradeniya University when I was an undergraduate. Happened me to meet, it was a coincidence. And when I tried to talk with him in the friendly way, he completely refused. He told, no use of making friends. Why you are coming and talking? Of course, I had no any kind of a particular aim talking him, because he was a foreigner and he was a monk. I want to talk. Then he told, if we are talking, we have to talk on mindfulness, not otherwise. I told, I don't know. I have never heard about mindfulness. He told, that is the basic teaching of the Buddha. So we had an argument. I told, I am a born Buddhist. How can you are going to teach Buddhism for me? Buddha, I know the Buddhism so much so, but there is no much of mindfulness. So after a long discussion, I told him, I like to put that into experiment, but don't ask me to come and sit with you, but I am such a dynamic person, I can't sit. I have no time. Then it's no problem. What you can do is, when you are walking, when you are going up and down for day-to-day activities, try to keep the track with your left leg and the right leg, how it is touching the ground. And try to focus on the leg movements. So I remember one day when I am walking, of a lot of people in the street, he asked me to, best is to walk yourself alone, don't have talks and kind of thing, and give the attention to the lower part of your body and see the movements of the leg, walk slowly or normal way and try to feel the touch of the ground. So one day while I am trying, of course it's an accident, and I feel like all of a sudden a robot is walking. I can see myself is walking and the street is there full of people. Few thought moments time I thought, a completely different angle. Suddenly I ran to him and told, but something happened, this kind of thing. I don't know, is this, does it mean by the mindfulness or whatever? Then he told, if it is happening, do it again and again. Take your own time, let the body to walk. And just like a TV camera, you observe yourself. And that is the starting point. Then I told, very rarely only it happens. Then he understood that I am taking little interest, even though as an undergraduate. He told, I will give you a little hint. Daily in your daily routine, you have some actions you are doing by yourself. And daily you are doing it. Under such circumstances, let the action happen, make a determination, as well I try to be mindful there. Then he told, daily you are brushing your teeth. And when you are brushing, observe yourself, the whole action, and try to feel the experience. Brush, and you are brushing the toothpaste, and when you are washing and every kind of thing. And the golden advice he gave me was, do slowly, don't rush, determine mindfulness, and listen to your own sounds. When you are brushing, you experience it and listen to your own. And he told, the Buddha himself has mentioned, when you go to the toilet, when you are doing the first job and the second job, definitely you are unto yourself. And determine to be mindful. And it's a very successful place. You can be with yourself and dirty things is going out and you can be mindful. Likewise, that even though you are in a day-to-day very running, very active life, these little things. And he used to give a lot of things. He told me, these are the tags for each day. Whenever such a thing happens, try to be mindful. And of course, I was very inefficient in developing. It took me about 9 years. 9 years to understand that whatever the effort you put forth is going to bear fruits. But I had very little trust and applied and invested very slowly. After 8-9 years only, I understood, even without any background preparation, I can develop it. And then he gave me another secret. He told, don't let anyone know that you are mindful. You are trying to be mindful. Do it as a secret. Because under Sri Lankan situation, the younger generation, that when someone is doing meditation or that kind of thing, others don't believe. There is no such a tradition. So therefore, don't let others know that you try to be mindful. And of course, he gave me 2 other things. He told, I don't know whether you will listen to me or not, don't marry. If you're going to marry, you are definitely have to have another psychology. You are bonded. Whatever may be, ultimately end up with the friction. I leave it as it is, just I am repeating what he says. And third thing he told, if you are going to do a job also, it's such a this thing, and therefore be as much as possible as a student. So I registered for my postgraduate without going for a job, just to extend the playful life. Recently I met him in Australia, Singapore. I thanked him. He says, I can't remember that I gave that kind of advices. No, I told Bande, that time was my real changing time. Each and every word you mention, I remember. And ultimately it's going to work. And some of the other, during my postgraduate, it happened me to go to a job. It's a very demanding job. And I was working with the Norwegian. And I had no particular money desire or any sensuous kind of thing. It was, of course, in general terms. I thought I would do whatever I am doing, do it in a mindful way. And I worked for 6 years. Each time my salary doubled, and the foreigner gave me all the facilities because I never felt tired. Whatever the task I am doing, I do in labor management, security, foreign correspondence, and research and development, and production, everything. And the foreigner came and asked that, the way you are practicing, I can understand the energy. Then I told, I am not rushing anything. I do whatever the appearing thing, whatever it appears, I take it up and go. And so much of development happens. And therefore, if you start at your younger age, the enormous amount you can experiment with. But I am telling you, it is a lifelong experiment. Still I started in 1979, 80, and more than 30 years, still I am a beginner. So therefore, whenever you are incorporating the diligence or mindfulness, to be always entertain the beginner's mind. Never assume that I am an expert, I know and I am ready to teach others. Nothing. Daily behave like a beginner. So therefore, your mind is always young. It is rejuvenating. Just like you are observing yourself while you are practicing, while you are doing day-to-day activities, observing yourself. And the most dramatic phenomena is, whenever you are practicing, then you try to incorporate mindfulness. Of course, when the mindfulness is setting in, wherever you go, you can understand the other person who is mindful. That is a kind of a magnetic this thing. And you can see the people are entertaining and they are going on, and you get aside and look at it. You can see each and every society, there are some people, they are very mindful. And I read all the 20th century heroes, 100 characters, a compiled book. And when you read it, you can see they were very mindful, they were very diligent, and they were very careful not to do what you should not do. And in Pali, it is in we call Sabbapapa Sakarana. And later I heard that the father of medicine, I can't remember, not the Socrates, who started the medical science, he has told, first do no harm. In the medical science, the very first oath you have to take is first do no harm. So therefore your life is, of course, very dynamic. You do what is confronted with, but you always understand not to disturb other psychologies, not to disturb the nature. You are dynamic, you are diligent, you are vigilant to perform tasks, but always keep an eye not to do bad things. And the good and bad is according to your measurement, not the someone given. Basic thing is not to disturb other psychology. When this is happening, definitely you may find, whatever made the society, there are some other people, they are following the same rules. Ultimately, they are magnetizing each other. And when that happens, the momentum increases. And in order to give more fertilize, you yourself can have a small group and discuss each other. when we are trying to be mindfulness, a lot of mishaps happen. It's a real joke. When you are performing a task according to your normal speed, you do it. But whenever you try to be mindful, everything gets upset. At the beginning, everything gets upset. So there was one young monk came from Switzerland, and he's very big renunciation, and he came to Nissarana, the monastery. He's a very young monk, and he explained his experience in mindfulness. One day he came and sit in front of the dining hall. He has a small bench and a table, and there was a thermos flask, and his cup is something like this, and the spittoon to throw away unwanted water. He come and try to get some hot water into his cup very slowly, very mindfully. He opened the thermos flask and about to pour into his cup, he found little water inside the cup. Now the second task, because now he had to first empty the cup and then fill hot water into the empty cup. So then what he did was again reappraisal of the job, and ultimately now he's performing and he found something wrong somewhere. What happened was, so mindfully he has opened the thermos flask and emptying the thermos flask into the spittoon, and the cup is completely out. It's so concerned, seriously he is doing, he can't perform day-to-day tasks. So at the beginning you also may encounter with that kind of thing. So whenever we used to meet at that time, each and everyone is telling, when you try to seriously or mindfully to do something, there's a kind of a shaking happens. So it is usually in the whole our day-to-day life, that is what happens, that when a child is about to walk, each time it is trying to get a few steps, drop down and damages happen. So you have to be a little careful when it is tottering and walking. Exactly when the mindfulness is going to take momentum, these kind of thing happens. So whenever we discuss each other in a group, we understand these things are promoting us to be mindful, and ultimately once that gain the ground, once you develop the momentum, it serves in return so much of security and disciplining of your life. So therefore, either you can take it as a religious activity or spiritual activity, or otherwise you can understand increasing the efficiency by being mindful, one thing at a time, and that done well. At the beginning, as I mentioned, it is difficult because we have multitasking. So therefore, take little simple tasks like brushing your teeth and going to the toilet or kind of thing. Or if you have time, close your eyes and come to such a place like this and try to keep the attention introvert with the body, and slowly, definitely you are going to get your own ways and means to keep the track with. So this is increasing the diligence, increasing the vigilance, increasing the mindfulness, and of course it's a very introduction is for self-understanding, liberation and the emancipation. But if you read the mindfulness, according to the present literature, in America, almost all the research are happening how to improve the present day-to-day life. Or, for example, stress reduction, and they have found a huge relationship between the mindfulness and the blood pressure the regulation, heart attacks, and stress. And therefore, one person is a Jew. He has written Full Catastrophic Living. It's a thick book. He says complete catastrophic living, but still you can see the mindfulness. See the whole ups and downs of the life through the mindfulness. And he questioned, is mindfulness Buddhist? No one can say it is Buddhist. It is a kind of the game, it is a kind of understanding of the mind. So you can't reduce it. And he predicted in a sarcastic way, in 3 to 4 years' time, mindfulness will be the most popular medicine in the world. Because it is answering all the difficult, complex diseases. Miraculously, mindfulness never gives after effects, no side effects. Whatever it do, mindfulness is understanding the problem. It is diagnostic. Not only the physical health, but in the medical health, mental health, as well as common society in life. So therefore, if you know mathematics, you will understand the mathematics. Simple task is understanding the sum. Once you understand, it is matter of working out. But if you are rushing to work it out without understanding the problem, you will never sort it out. So therefore, mindfulness at the beginning make the life very slow phase. But ultimately, the diagnostic part, you become the patient, you become the doctor, you become the medicine, and you become self-sustained. So that is, as I mentioned for the third time, I am telling you, consider it as a religious, or you can consider the efficiency of your day-to-day life. And at the beginning, even if you are going to start in the secret way, without telling others, the Americans, they have found whenever someone is developing mindfulness, he is emitting kind of a vibration they call good vibes. Wherever he go, it is like a good suspension in a car, like a shock absorber. Any shock happens, he can absorb, he never return it, and therefore wherever he goes, he maintain the balanced mind in the vicissitudes of the life. So therefore, your young life for the moment may not be so much of ups and downs, but definitely you understand in future. Are going to have, if you have this mindfulness, or if you have this suspension system or shock absorbers, your journey will be smooth. So with that remark, I would like to sum up the talk, and I think there are some questions already given, so we can go for a discussion if you have time, based upon what I mentioned, or some people may have their own experience in the mindfulness. So we go ahead with these written questions. So anyone happy to talk and give their own contribution to this discussion rather than going to the questions, or shall I start with the written papers? Or first of all, I have to ask, do you understand my English? How can Buddhism help us in everyday life? I have a single formula. Buddhism means meditation. Meditation is vipassana. Inside meditation is mindfulness. It's a 4 steps. So whenever you start with mindfulness, that is what the talk is, how it is helping in the day-to-day activities, I would say it is not Buddhism, it is the Dhamma or teaching of the Buddha. Many will not be happy, specifically the religious, traditional Buddhist people will not be happy, but for me, Buddhism means meditation. I would say the Buddhism without meditation is like a person without a head. Useless. And meditation also, more than concentration meditation, the inside meditation is the crux, it is the pinnacle. And for the inside meditation, the simple method is be mindful. And I jokingly, I used to say, be mindful and mind your own business. Don't try to fork fingers into others. You take your body and your present moment and be aware of it as much as possible. And that is the basic idea of the Buddha. So therefore, you will be a good Buddhist as well as you will be a practicing person on Buddha Dhamma also, the teaching of the Buddha also. So therefore, unluckily, now it has become an ism, ritualistic and all the kind of things. Usually it is the game, but you please understand the crux of it and apply yourself. It will be very practical. What is the Buddhist attitude to euthanasia? What if it is your parent and you need to give permission? Recently I read in the American situation, and the euthanasia-wise, you have to read Holland. Holland is the first country by law given the chance for euthanasia. And America, there are different states. They understand that death of the brain is the end of the life. Some say death of the heart is the end of the life. So they are arguing each other. They can't understand. So therefore, they argue death is not a single moment, it's a dragging business now. Because of the science. Because you ventilate the person, ultimately he is breathing, but no one knows whether the other parts are happening. So it has become a political issue. It has become a power issue. And therefore, what the Americans ultimately they say is, if that particular person has written the last will, then no problem. Then the doctors has to understand. There's a one person known as the Dr. Death in Holland. He take any contract, he go and put the injection. And he has been known as Dr. Death. So when such a thing happen, if someone is towards the euthanasia, he used to call that Dr. Death and he come and finish the job. And when I was in Burma, this case happened because a Canadian lady doctor came and asked the question. And then my teacher, the Burmese shadow, she told, if you are going to take a decision towards your parent or loved one, whatever may be, you are committing. Therefore, let the nature to take place. And specifically as a monk, taken the moral monastic code, don't get involved. Anyone take, don't object that non-reactional way. Let it happen. Otherwise, you are committing the abortion, euthanasia. These are the two ends, beginning of the life and the end of the life. So these issues, best thing is to happen natural way. But when it is happening in hospital, it's a serious issue. There was one of our secretaries, and he was, within his life, he became a very rich man. And he got 4 children, and they were running the business. Ultimately, he got this blood, always he has to do blood transfusion. I think liver, kidneys are not working. And one child was in abroad, and he came and found father is just lying. Ultimately, he told, never mind, we'll take a decision, end it up. Ultimately, throughout his life, he was suffering. He was frustrated, and he was, regretting that he has taken a wrong decision. At that time, he also very boldly went there and overruled the mother and every kind of thing. He told no use. So therefore, it is related to another psychology, another person. I think best thing is we can't say black and white answer. It's a circumstantial, and therefore there's one book written by Dr. Anton Jayasuriya, Euthanasia. In our library we have a small book, and he has given the present world events on euthanasia, and very difficult. According to the medical science, they are not agreed and they are not in one particular decision. So therefore, don't try to get committed into that. And if you are in a group and what the group says, let it happen. Don't try to take initiative in that kind of thing, because these are grey areas, very difficult to end up with. Even your parents, whatever may be, and consult other necessary people and go by the majority. That is my personal advice, rather than committing yourself to say yes or no. And if you people wish, write your last will and keep it to your close friends, and then they will take an easy decision. Otherwise, you are also creating a problem for your dear and near ones. The next one is, what is the Buddhist view on abortion? These are the two issues. And last time when I was in Perth, the issue came. What is the Buddhist view on abortion? Then luckily the sister Vayama was there. She was the first bhikkhuni became, and she was very sick. But anyway, she was very happy to come and take the retreat. Then I asked the sister, it is more female question, why do you want to take it up? And she told, Thank you very much, Bhante. What I am telling is, it is up to that particular mother. If that mother needs, no one has no right to say yes or no. Of course, we can take it from the moral point of view. In Sri Lanka, it is considered as bad. Or Catholic point of view, it's bad. But the particular mother has to take care. Therefore, I defend whatever the decision mother take. It's how do you call, yes or no. But as a society, as a group, very difficult to draw, how do you call, a line to say it must be stopped or it must be everything be allowed. So therefore, the euthanasia and abortion, they become very, more and more the medical science become very advanced. The situation become more and more grey, volatile, very difficult to have a black and white answer. So therefore, the best thing is to take decisions circumstantially, rather than take a national constitution or hard and fast kind of thing. You have to consider all the relevant variables and take eventual the circumstantial decision rather than go into a national-wide decision. Is it wrong to fight for the army? So my teacher, Pandita, he used to say, for a person like me, only two jobs. One thing, mindfulness, second thing is in the army. Because both of them are face-to-face. All the others are escapism. Whole life is escapism, unless otherwise you go to the battlefield, other person is having a gun, you also have. If he is first, you did. If you are first, he did. And the other thing is mindfulness. He said, this is in all other psychologies, therefore I selected mindfulness is better than going to armies. Directly you are working with the defilements. In mindfulness, it is also, the Buddha says, winning 1,000 people or 1,000 enemies in one battlefield is one option. The other one is winning your own mind. He says, out of these two, the winning your own mind is better. If it is not so, please go to army. In between, all the others are escapism. This is the way I look into that. So therefore, be mindful or go to the army. But in America, like that, you have to. All the university students sometimes has to go and do the service. I did my senior cadetting. There I did little bit of army training. But I would say that through mindfulness, it is more challenging, it is more rejuvenating, more than army. How do we continue a program like this in the future for teenagers? You see that in my case, I was not a teenager. I was 20 odd number of years. It was a coincidence and it was my attraction. I keep the track with that teacher. Ultimately, he told, in this place, it was in Peradeniya, there's a small group, you won't believe, maybe 8 to 9 people. Wednesday we have a 1 hour sitting, Sunday we have a discussion. If you wish, you can come. So it was perfectly fitting for me because it's a walking distance. I used to go and sit, I don't know what to do. All the others, they are very seriously meditating. I just go and wait because I don't know what they are doing, what's the meaning of meditation, nothing. But still I felt kind of a membership. And in the discussion, the bad thing was at that time my English was not so good. But the discussion happened in English medium. Once in a way, some people come and give a discussion. But ultimately I found these people, they are the individuals, they are very senior people. At that time, related to my age, they are simple living and high thinking. They never claim as Buddhists. They have no other organization. They get together, sit, have a cup of tea and go. Next day, one person come prepared with one particular, and give this thing and little bit of discussion and went off. Ultimately, what happened was, they put up a meditation center. That is what we have now in Nilambe, Galaha. And it was a very liberal. Any person can come. Basically, foreigners are coming and they practice meditation. And when I was doing my job, I used to go there whenever I get annual leave and the weekends, and that is how it happens. So therefore, whoever may be person who understood the value of this, they have to get little small groups, meet regularly, and as far as the elders are concerned, in Melbourne, I came and I stayed there for 3 months continuously in my first visit. And there we used to have weekly Dhamma talk. And what they do is now, from 2006 onward up till now, each Saturday, they have 1.5 hours discussion. Sometimes they relate to Sri Lanka over the telephones, and each one is meditating, not in a retreat atmosphere, and we are discussing each other. While meditating, these questions happen, what to do and kind of thing. So it's a whole Dhamma family, or a kind of a membership in a family membership like. The topic is mindfulness. So therefore you have to meet at least once a week, at least 1 hour, get together. Either sitting or a discussion. Or either you can invite some other person who is little advanced in that, and they come and give a topic and discuss something like this. So therefore, someone has to take the initiative, and the number of participants will be really discouraging. Very little number will start. And when you keep on doing only, you are going to get the results. So therefore, it is going a long way. Therefore, someone has to, the discussion is the most important thing what I suggest, and have a regular gathering, regular meeting. That is the recharging of the battery. How do you deal with disappointments? When I was in university, I was in the science faculty, and some of the other reason I used to go to the main library in the art faculty. One day I was reading a book, Shortcuts to the Nibbana, or Nivan Dapime Keti Maga, the easiest way to go to the final liberation. Why not? I started reading. That is a cyclo-style book, small book, and it was the new coming book. So I was reading it. It's very interesting. Chinese book translated through the Sanskrit to English to the Sinhala. At the end, there was one A4 type paper. The topic was disappointment. And it was little by Trumpa. At that time, he was in America. He has very nicely explained, all appointments are ending up with disappointments. That's a deathbed, is a complete disappointment. So therefore, one Westerner has written, our whole life is a very complicated, long formula. We are working out throughout, but whatever the efficiency, at the end, the deathbed answer is 0. Whatever the complexity of the formula, whatever the way you answer, end up with 0. So therefore, utter disappointment. So Trump argued, why don't you have an appointment with the disappointment? So you will never get disappointed. So therefore, always expect a disappointment. So then either by coming the disappointment, you will be happy because that is what you expected to happen. If it is not happening, still good. Do anything can go wrong, no problem. But that does not indicate your battery discharge and you are disappointed because you have an appointment with the disappointment. No problem. So now it is more and more vigilant, more and more, pragmatic. Whenever something goes wrong, it's a sarcastic laugh coming to, okay, now the nature is such, but I expected it's not happening. But what about the next moment? Again you can start, unless otherwise you get discouraged and disappointed, disheartened. But go prepared. Life is such. So therefore, if you are going to read it, the Chinese word, the Taoism means that merging into the nature. Don't try to change the nature. Only the human being has the full capacity in the evolution. They can fit into any situation. So therefore now it is disappointment, accept it. And see the next moment, it's a completely new chance. If you are regretting, dragging, next moment also disappointment. So therefore, accept this disappointment, leave it aside and be prepared for the next. Of course, it may be too early for your young life, but simply remember, have an appointment with disappointment, so there won't be any disappointment. Those who have so much of positive and concrete ideas ultimately end up with heartbreak. And therefore, their life is such, but that does not indicate that each disappointment is discharging you and disheartening. Be aware of the disappointment. If you were to acquire a time machine and successfully travel into the past, how would that affect your karma? That means that you have already now, I don't know, does everyone have the idea about karma and the karma results? Good begets good and the bad begets bad. So therefore everyone says that you have your own past, the account balance. So therefore it is affecting you. So when you go back, will you do away with this karma? Or will you ready to accept whatever it is coming? So if the time machine is there, definitely you can go back and see the source. So the mindfulness never indicate you the time machine to go back, but it is bring the attention to the present moment. So therefore, forget about the karma that you have already performed, but you understand each and every moment we are performing karmic forces. So therefore, first do no harm. Don't commit any bad thing, and whatever you are going to do, leave aside the past, in the future going to happen. There's a one person known as Eli, he's a New Zealander, Hollander. He was practicing there. One day he was doing a translation work in order to maintain the visa in the Sri Lankan University, and he lived with us in the Nilambe at that time. One day he has gone to the Holland, and the people has asked him to give a talk, and elderly people. So he has told that karma and karma theory is like, the huge Hume pipes using for the culverts. Hume pipes, the concrete pipes that you put into the culverts underneath. Mind you, it's a huge Hume pipe, like size of this room. If you are walking on the Hume pipe, what happens is, it is also rotating. After a while, you will see some steps. It is rotating and coming down, your own steps. After a while, you feel it. So therefore, our life in the past is the one deciding the present moment, and the present moment is deciding the future. So therefore, if each and every moment is very critical. And there was one person, he told, so while he told that your theory is denying the God, the Creator. So therefore, he was started shouting and kind of thing. Ultimately, Eli told, he is the only person that has understood what I am telling. That is why he is fighting with. So present moment is made by the past. And the Buddha says that give a very good kind of consideration. But no second person, you are the very person creating your past is the very thing is creating the present, and the very moment is creating your future, and you have no right to attribute to someone else. So you become omnipotent. You become omnipresent. So therefore, shaping up of the present moment, leaving aside the past through the time machine, at least in future, you will understand less and less misdeeds. And that is what the mindfulness will show you. The time machine is nowadays they are talking about, but it's a mind game. When we were young, they understand the supersonic, the traveling more faster than the sound. So there are a lot of articles in Sri Lankan papers. If you can go back, travel backward, you can listen to Buddha. Because Buddha's words are still spreading from the earth to the space, And if you travel fast, you can catch one day the Buddha words, and you can definitely see the original Buddhist words. And Buddhists were so happy, we can travel faster than the sounds. But you see now, after 20 years, they are just still ideas, nothing but pragmatic. So therefore, the mindfulness is give a different revolutionary answer. You are making your future in the present. Why don't you take bookkeeping? And then you can understand what is going to happen. So that's it. These are the questions, but I feel that I am the only person talking, you people are not talking.
Hello, my name is Ray. In terms of Buddhism point of view, I was wondering why we are here, what's the purpose of life, and what's the true meaning of happiness? Yeah. It's a bit broad, but I would like to listen to your point of view.
Yeah, that two points we can ask our or my. Our means generalizing the society at large, or I can ask myself. So, it's a spiritual question, first of all, to understand who am I. Because our mind is always avoiding this question. Our mind mechanism is always thinking about others and other times and other places, never to focus into see who am I. The moment you come to the who am I, you will understand in a way what is the purpose of life and what is the true happiness. Without understanding the who am I, whatever you are going to do is a kind of a mind-made or deductive knowledge. Maybe true or not. So I suggest, first and foremost thing is to understand who am I. And there was one sage recently passed away in India. He was a Hindu, and he was he's coming a very high caste person and meditated, not Buddhist. But anyway, the people was so happy with him. He wrote his whole theory, 3 books, Who Am I? He says, if ever it occurred to you, it's a junction in your life. Because our mind is always escaping. Never understand who am I. If you understand who am I, the Buddha says the present moment or the human mind is lustrous. It is so beautiful. It is so contented. It is so saturated. But as far as you are projecting outside other person, it's always a vacuum is there. So whenever you understand who am I, that you understand the here, now, I am, present moment. And that very present moment itself is full of happiness. It is the contentment and the saturation, not the happiness of the sensuous happiness. And therefore you understand, you miss the point, you miss the bus, you live in the past and the future, or live in the other people's likings and disliking, or being here you think about other places. Under such circumstances, you can understand the purpose of life. So therefore, if you wish to understand the purpose of life, you have to be here and now, or you have to understand who am I. So when you understand it, you see it is very aesthetic. It's very full of nature and full of energy. It's such a flow. But each and every human being is going to make it square, make it adjusted. Ultimately, they are burning their fingers. So therefore, in order to answer what is happiness, or true happiness, and what is the purpose of life, I would challenge, I will present a challenge or a question. Please try to understand who am I, and only the human being can take that question and find an answer. Because all the animals have their own instinct. They have no peace of mind to understand who am I. So human, but even then, without mindfulness and without taking this question of who am I, we may live 100 years, but not a single moment you are living, you are dreaming to live. You are planning to live, you are never living. So therefore you are robbing your own very precious life. So therefore, try to understand who am I. And the moment you understand who am I, you understand humanity. You are never understanding individuality. So therefore you can understand why other people are behaving like that. And then you understand why the rocks are rocks, why the rivers are rivers, why the flowers are flowers. So you become a flower, you become a rock, you become a river, because you understand everything happening. Because your mind is the human body, and the mind is completely full of nature. But if you're going to twist, shift the moment from the here now I am, it's a madness. It's a madness. So that is why the Buddha says, each and every being in the world is mad. They how do you call, miss the bus. And they have a medical scientist and psychiatrist. They try to understand the ideal health or ideal mental, ideal healthy mind. No one. All medical science is developed upon sick body, developed upon sick mind. So therefore it is sick science. And never mind, they can understand the sickness, but if they have to have an ideal idea where they are going to lead. Recently, the Dalai Lama is asking the top class, the Harvard University people, in the West, do you have the ideal human body? An ideal or healthy human mind? No. He says, the Buddha also has mentioned, not a single person is with the ideal body and the ideal mind, but he says, if you practice mindfulness, one day you can understand how to love your body, how to live in the present moment, and your mind will be blooming, and therefore the Buddha's, at least there's an aim. So therefore I have my fair doubt whether we can answer these questions at the society at large. But I would say individually, if you take it to the heart, you can answer. You can answer to yourself. So therefore the Nehru, the president of the Prime Minister of the India, and he is the person who put the emblem of the wheel of Dhamma to the Indian emblem, national this thing, and kind of, they are not, Indian government is not Buddhist, but he is selected and he is a wise person. He has mentioned, I have my fair doubt to say whether Buddhism can be practiced at the society at large. But I will assure you, if you practice, results are there. He is aiming at you, not we, not people, it's an individual. So therefore, individually you can fight and you can get this thing, it's very difficult to generalize. So therefore, many people say meditation is very selfish. It's a very selfish thing. So my teacher in Burma, he says, it is selfish. Of course, I will agree with you. After you are understanding, if you are not sharing with others, you are selfish. But without practicing, if you expect the happiness must be there, the purpose of life must be there, it is opportunities. You have to earn it. You have to earn through mindfulness. Through the mindfulness, day by day, you are answering this question. There, ultimately, you have something to share with other people, the human nature, equality of the people. And if you are not doing that, is selfish. Buddha, he tried so much, and 45 years, unconditionally, 18 hours and more, he was helping others. So therefore, the selfishness idea is impractical, is the only way. So that is why I am telling, be mindful and mind your own business. So many people telling that it is not a good way of presenting. But day by day I become more and more convinced. More and more you become mindful. You try to restrain yourself not to commit others, not to create problem to the others, not to make any friction to the others. That is the best you can do. Rather than helping and have all the kind of things, these all are ego trip. But not doing harm to others, no ego trip. And very benevolent and Samaritan. So that you understand the purpose of life. You can understand the happiness. I don't think I have given a convincing answer, but this is the way I take time. I would say full time, I am taking to understand who am I. Maybe now you people have taken 2.5 hours sitting and listening and discussion. Maybe tiring. Seems no more questions, so we can sum up.